We're going to hit record. Okay. I hope you guys see the record button. So hi, and thank you for coming. As I was saying, you know, I'm supposed to be on the West Coast this week, visiting bookstores and signing books and giving this presentation to all of the women that live in those towns in person. But you know, I'm looking for things to be grateful for. And what I'm grateful for is that all of you have the internet. All of you are able to spend time with me tonight. And chances are I probably wasn't going to be in your town and you wouldn't have been able to come and see this presentation in person anyway. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm really grateful that we here have been able to stay strong and healthy, and that you've been able to stay strong and healthy, and that we're all doing our part to keep the rest of our neighbors and loved ones healthy too. So I can't think of a better time to talk about this topic, the habits of resilient women. Isn't this such an interesting time that I would write this book at this time when I was putting this book together last summer? Actually, I'll tell you all a little secret, since this is a book event. This book was supposed to be called The Essentials of Leadership Excellence. And last summer, when I was meeting with my publishers, they liked it. And actually, the content of this book is The Essentials of Leadership Excellence, but they didn't really think that this title was hot and juicy and sexy enough. And what they said was, they said, Beth, you're going to be on tour in the spring and summer of 2020 at the same time that there's going to be a very controversial presidential debates and elections and campaigning going on. And that's the time to talk to women about leadership. And that was how the book became called Women Lead. And I love this book cover. Do you guys love this book cover? This is my favorite book cover. It's my 10th book, and it's my favorite book cover. I've never had anything gold, but I have to tell you, the very first book cover that the publisher sent me was blue and green. And it was not exciting. It was not at all pretty. So I'm really, really glad that they made it like this. So, since you're not in the bookstore with me and I'm not signing it for you in person, I want to let you know that this book is for sale. Of course, you can buy this book on Amazon, but please, if you have an independent or any kind of a bookstore in your town, please buy from them. In the United States, I'm available in Barnes & Noble. In Canada, I'm available in the Indigo bookstores. And in the United Kingdom, this book's available in Waterstones. And pretty much any independent bookseller will be able to get this book for you, okay? I know I have a lot of my hometown friends and family on here tonight. If you're here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I live, Barnes & Noble in Settlers Ridge has about 50 copies. So they would just so appreciate it if you did a pickup. The store's open on the inside, but a lot of people are still doing curbside pickup. So let's please, 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 Amazon does not need our help right now. They're doing fine, but let's please support those small businesses and independent bookstores if you can. I hope you'll get the book and I hope you'll enjoy it. So tonight's topic is resilience. And what is resilience anyway? Okay, so when I think of resilience, I kind of think of this, a really tough lady, right? Somebody who just doesn't let anything get to her. Is that the way you think when you think about yourself being resilient? You could also think about somebody who can just stretch and bend and is very, very flexible. That's also a description of resilience. But my description of resilience is the ability for you and me to recover readily, to bounce back from illness, depression, adversity, or in some other way being bent, compressed, or stretched to your limit. And some of us have been there this spring, isn't it? But you have that ability to bounce back, don't you? You have that ability to recover, and you have done it many times, right? So I have also done this many times, and I'm going to share with you the 10 strategies that all of us can use to become stronger and more resilient no matter what we face, okay? Now, you have all spent much of your life listening and reading and learning about how to have a healthy and strong physical body, how to have a strong physical immune system, And you know all the things. What do you want to have? You want to have sunshine and fresh air and exercise and vitamin D and vitamin C and protein and all of those things that you want to have a strong and healthy physical body. But we never hear from the experts about what you need for your emotional health. When you have a strong physical body, you can recover from viruses. But if you have a not so strong emotional body, it takes first of all, you get sick more and it takes longer to recover. Okay. And we face as many emotional challenges as we do physical. Okay. Even today. So strategy number 1 is to have healthy coping skills. So look at this picture. How many of these expressions have you personally had in the past few months, right? It's been a little bit shocking, especially if you're watching the news. I know here in my house, we completely shut off the news about mid-April because some of the things that we were hearing. And I got to tell you, you know, I love my Facebook, but I've been having this kind of look a lot when I've been on Facebook sometimes. So I've had to really cut back on that. But having healthy coping skills is really important, and being aware of the tendency to get very emotional when things go wrong. So here's the thing, these kind of expressions, those should be set aside for very drastic, difficult, and upsetting situations. We shouldn't have this kind of a look on our face for something like I can't find my car keys, or we're out of milk. We shouldn't be having these kinds of reactions for everyday occurrences. And too many people do. So the very first strategy I have for you is to have a healthy coping skill. Pay attention to how you handle emotional surprises, challenges, and those things that stretch you. And one of my favorite sayings is the difference between a stumbling block and a stepping stone is how you use it. Now, I know a lot of you, I saw the names as you were popping in tonight. Everybody came in at the same time and I was watching those names come in. A lot of you are very optimistic and very resilient people, and you have learned to use your mistakes or your disappointments or your challenges as a stepping stone, but you also work with or lead and sometimes live with people that have a victim mentality, that think that everything happens to them. And that is the kind of thing that will make you be devastated every time something happens. So notice, if you have a tendency to cry, get angry, or get upset very easily, there's something that needs to be reset. Maybe it's your sleep, maybe it's your rest. But we want to begin to, when we have difficult things happen to us, we want to begin to do sort of my favorite thing, which is say, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what lesson this is supposed to be teaching me, or I wonder what I'm supposed to be gaining from this, okay? If you have any questions about dealing with challenges, I'm going to hang out here later after we stop the recording and answer your questions one-on-one, and I'll also give you an opportunity to talk with me in person. Okay, so strategy number 1, have healthy coping skills. Use your best opportunities, your best habits to respond to challenges, okay? Always taking the high road. Strategy number 2, so this is kind of simple. I mean, you guys know that we're supposed to get sunshine and fresh air every day, and you're not supposed to get your sunshine and fresh air when you're driving through the drive-through to get a very fast dinner because you've booked yourself so tight. That's not the only fresh air and sunshine I want you to get, okay? And we know that we're supposed to do this, but how much do we actually take time to breathe? How much do we actually take time to get outside, to sit on our porch, or to take a walk in our neighborhood? How many of us are booking ourselves so tight and putting to-do lists that are so long that it's not even possible to take a break? I do this now on a regular basis. I schedule time in to take breaks, and I have breaks in between my clients so I can go outside. I have a porch. I'm in my home office here. So we have a beautiful porch in the front that's best in the mornings, and we have a nice deck in the back that I like to go to in the afternoon between clients. But I have to tell you, this is kind of embarrassing. Most of my 20s and 30s, I'm not sure I took a breath. I used to pride myself on being able to not eat, not sleep, and not go to the bathroom for a long period of time so that I could get more done, okay? You can only do that for a little while. You can get away with it in your 20s and part of your 30s, but as you get older, your body just does not cooperate with that. And I didn't take time to breathe. And as a result of that, I did wind up getting sick, which is a story in my previous book, but also I missed a lot. I wasn't always in the present, and I missed a lot of the things that I was achieving and creating. And I missed a lot of different experiences that I wish that I could go back and enjoy right now. So strategy number 2 is make sure you take time to breathe. And for you ambitious women, and I know there's a lot of you on here, you might have to schedule that time in. And I have to tell you, I've been doing this now for about 8 or 10 years, this new and unusual habit of mine to not overbook myself and to do something called time blocking on my calendar and to focus on just one thing at a time. And it's amazing to me, the less I do, the less hectic I am and the less scattered I am, the more I get done. It's really an interesting, it's a really just an interesting and fascinating enigma. And it's something that I would love for all of you to try. Okay, here's one of my favorite sayings. When you stop living in reactive mode, you can finally enjoy a life that you don't need a vacation from. I used to long for vacations, just long for times to get away and just get away because I had created a life around me that was so hectic and so frantic and so overpaced. And now we're in a situation where I know some people are taking vacations, but we're not taking vacations this year. Of course, I was supposed to be traveling everywhere. Paul and I were hoping to go to New Orleans this year for our birthday. And we've just decided, it's probably better off that we hold off on that until next year. And that's disappointing. But you know what? My life is kind of a vacation now. And so it isn't as devastating to me as it would have been if this had happened to us 10 years ago. But if you feel like you always need a vacation, I want to ask you, when is the last time that you paused? When is the last time that you had even just one day that you weren't living in reactive mode? And this is one of my favorite sayings. I tell this to my clients all the time. And if you like this, save this little sticky note and have it up anytime that you need it to remind you. Okay. So strategy number 3, to be very resilient. This is so important. And I have a picture here of all women, but it doesn't have to be women. Stay connected and stay connected to like-minded people who really just get you. I've been doing a lot of media from here in my home. It's so amazing how we adapt to things. But I was interviewed on a podcast from a young man in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada last Friday, I believe. And the podcast hasn't become live yet. If you follow me on social media or if you get my email newsletter, it will be there. I'll tell you about it. But what a fascinating interview that was. This young man is an accountant. He lives in Alberta, Canada. He was very, very depressed after getting a divorce. He tells a story, so this isn't a secret. And somebody challenged him to do something different. And he started this podcast. And we are like soulmates. 29-year-old guy who's an accountant who lives in Alberta, which is pretty remote in the middle of Canada. There is pretty much no chance he and I would have ever crossed paths in our lives had he not started a podcast. And we did the interview and we stayed on the phone and we talked for an hour after the interview. We were so like-minded. And he said, it feels so weird because, I'm kind of like almost as old as his mom. He goes, I feel like I'm visiting, one of my mom's friends. And I said, when you're like-minded, you just sync. And if he lived here in my neighborhood, chances are we would sit on our front porch and talk about our favorite things. Or he and I like the same books. We like the same podcasts. We have very similar business styles, right? Staying connected to people who have the same beliefs as you do, who have the same style as you do. We are not normally put into families of people who are exactly like us and have the goals and dreams that we do. Normally that doesn't happen. Many of you entrepreneurs are the oddball in your family. You're the one that your parents worry about, right? So it's important for you to be around like-minded people. And maybe you're someone who has an interesting hobby, like knitting or playing the banjo. And it really feeds your soul to be around other people who enjoy doing those things as well. So when you're not around people who bring you joy, when you're only around obligations all day long, it's kind of like starving yourself. So make it a point to stay connected. I have two very good friends, and we honestly schedule time to even just have a phone call. And I talked to one of my friends, Nicole, today, and it was just about 25 minutes, and I must have laughed 10 times. It was just what I needed. Those kinds of things feed your soul. So strategy number 3 is stay connected. Okay. I wish I could see your faces right now. Who looks like this in the morning when they get up, right? How many of you look exactly the opposite of this when you get up in the morning, right? Like, oh, I can't believe it's time to get up already. Or how many of you absolutely have to have the caffeine to get to the next step, right? To do the next thing. Sleeping well is a strategy for being not only emotionally healthy, but also for being physically healthy. Okay, sleeping well is really important. Now, you've already read all the articles and watched the TV shows about all the things that you can do to sleep well, but I'm going to give you some of the tips that worked for me. Okay, I was not a good sleeper. I'm one of these people that this brain just never stops. Okay, it just doesn't stop. I'm always having ideas, and I tried things like having a notepad by the bed and taking notes, and for a little while, I tried some sleeping aids, some herbs, and some over-the-counter sleeping pills. Those didn't work for me because I couldn't wake up in the next day. They would put me to sleep, but then I'd have trouble waking up. So having good, healthy sleep, think about, for those of you who have children or whoever have been around children, have you noticed that when they start to get very, very cranky, somebody says, oh, they're tired, time for a nap, right? We're just the same. If you find yourself being really short-tempered or really irritable, a little nap can really help you. So there's times, especially this time of year when the weather's changing and I'll get a little sinus headache, a little 15-minute nap does me a world of good, right? And so we treat children, our children and other people's children really well. You need your sleep. You need your vitamins. You need to eat really well, but we don't always do that for ourselves. So here's a couple things that help me sleep well. Number 1, turning off the TV. The TV just keeps me awake. So if I am in bed and it's long past my bedtime and I'm having trouble falling asleep, instead of watching TV shows or mindlessly flipping through, I have a list of TED Talks that I like to listen to. And so a TED Talk is about 20 minutes most of the time. Many times they're shorter. So you can have your YouTube channel open and you could just set up a playlist, and you could put all of the TED Talks that you've been meaning to watch or that you want to watch. You can learn some very fascinating things on that. And you watch one TED Talk and you learn something, you feed your mind, and then you try to go to sleep. Now, if that doesn't work, I will do this. I have turned on the television and put on the golf channel, because the golf channel in my part of the country goes 24/7. Even if it's not golf season, they have golf on there. And those men talk in such a way that puts me right to sleep. And it's very relaxing for me. If you try to concentrate on what they're saying on the golf channel, you go to sleep because you're not thinking about something else. And of course, there are other apps. You can get apps on your phone or apps on your computer. There are videos on YouTube that actually have programmed sleeping sounds that you can listen to. But for me, I don't like to have the computer or the telephone in my room with me. So I don't do that, but that might work for you, having an app that has some background noise. And there are even some of those apps that have sleepy stories where you can listen to the story and fall asleep. So if you've never tried any of those tips, try them and let me know how they work. And you might have a sleeping tip that I didn't include. Go ahead and put it in the chat if you'd like to share it. So strategy number 5 for having a really strong, healthy, emotional immune system is to align with your purpose. And I love this photo of this woman. This is a photo that I use for a commercial real estate presentation for commercial real estate women. And this woman just looks so confident, doesn't she? She looks like she loves her life. And I can promise you, when you are doing what you're meant to be doing, this is how you look. And I know this because for many, many years, I tried really hard to do things that I wasn't meant to do. For example, I had a number of careers, and one of them was in social work because I really felt from a young age that I wanted to change the world. And I tried for about 4 years working in the social work field, and that was really hard. It was really hard. And what was most hard about it was the agency that I worked with, and many social service agencies have a lot of rules. They have a lot of policies and procedures. And a lot of times they're not actually helping people. They're actually filling out paperwork to bill insurance companies and to get paid. And it was very frustrating for me to see families that needed help getting pushed from department to department to department. And when I would try to go outside of the rules and actually solve a problem, I was getting in serious trouble, not to mention really annoying my coworkers. At that time, I did not look like this woman. As a matter of fact, I wrote in one of my books that came out actually 10 years ago, this spring, is called the Empower book. I talk about how I just woke up one morning and I was just like, I can't go to work again. I just cannot go in there again. I was not aligned with my purpose. And several years later, I found myself on the stage with the Steve Harvey Success Institute on a huge stage with amazing speakers that all looked like her. And there were 1,000 people in that audience. And I could not wait to get to the microphone. What if I hadn't had the courage to leave that social work position, right? Aligning with your purpose truly feeds your soul, and it really makes you strong and healthy. So when I speak on stage about your purpose and finding your purpose, I'll never forget the first time I talked on this topic. I had a line of people. It was at a Steve Harvey Success Institute event, and I had a line of people waiting to ask me questions. And I got the same question over and over again. Beth, how do I know what my purpose is? I don't know what my purpose is. How do I know what my purpose is? And I was bewildered that you wouldn't know what your purpose was. But I had forgotten what it felt like to be that woman who couldn't get out of bed in the morning to go to work. And when you're that exhausted and that drained, you don't know what your purpose is. So what I tell them is, let's begin with what your purpose isn't. Your purpose isn't to serve and wait on people and make everybody happy. Let's begin to make a list of all the things that you never want to do again. That's how we get started on remembering what your purpose is. So another one of my favorite sayings, a woman with purpose, a woman who has stepped into her purpose and has realigned away from what everybody has told her she should be doing. You know what? You should be a nurse. You should be an accountant. That's a great job. You should get married. You should marry him, right? When you stop listening to what everybody thinks you should do and you think for yourself what you're really meant to do, then you're aligned with your purpose. And then you're able to handle emotional challenges better than any woman or any person who feels like their role on this earth is to work and serve others. That is not your purpose. Okay, strategy number 6, be kind to yourself. Oh my gosh. I am an expert at being unkind to myself. So if this is something that you do, you have a lot of company that you're with. I probably say this every day to one of my clients, boy, you're really hard on yourself. Or your expectations for yourself are not exactly the same as your expectations for others, okay? Have you ever looked in the mirror, ever, and said, oh my gosh, that's awesome. I love my eyes. I love my nose. I love my mouth, right? No, we don't do that. We tend to go, oh, please, this, right? That's not a nice way to be to yourself. Or whenever you've just achieved something great and you just finished a huge project and everybody's saying, hey, you did a great job. And you say something like, well, could have gotten it done earlier. Or I wish I would have had time to add this, or yeah, it's pretty nice, but it's missing that. You know, I was like that for most of my life. Being kind to yourself is a tremendous tool for being resilient. So how about tonight when you're going to bed, instead of getting ready for bed and ticking off in your head all of the things that you wish you had done today or the things that you wish you had not done today, how about just taking a moment at the end of the evening tonight and think about all of the things that you have accomplished? How many things have you actually done? It's here in the eastern part of the country in the United States, it's 6 p.m. How many things have you actually gotten done today? I have a feeling if you make that list and you really look at it, you're gonna be pretty proud of yourself, not to mention tired. And by the way, that's an excellent tip to sleep well at night is to really focus on what you have done and stop thinking about what you haven't done. It makes for a very good night's sleep. It makes you feel very accomplished. Okay. Remember, beating yourself up gives you nothing but bruises. There's absolutely nothing good that can come out of you listing everything that is wrong with you and everything that you wish you hadn't done and had done and should do and shouldn't do. So let's instead take some time today and every day and focus on the incredible awesomeness that only you can do and only you can be. Enough said, right? Let's focus on accomplishments. So one of the things that we'll say here is when you are making your lists of things to do, how many of you, some of you make it in your phone, some of you make it in your computer, on your calendar, others of you still have the good old-fashioned to-do list, right? How many of you right now have a long list of things that you need to get to? Okay, think about that list. My last book, which I don't have here, my last book is called From Frantic to Focused. And on the front cover of that book is a woman holding a long list. And that list is actually, if you look up really close to it, you can open up inside the book and you can see some of the things on the list inside. That's the actual list that was in my purse the day that I met with the graphic designer who was designing the cover of that book. And it's a long list. It's a long, long list. And my mom takes great offense to it because, you know, it was kind of one of those brain dump lists. It was like, I have so many things in my head, I have to write this down. And I wrote all this stuff down. And one of it says, make an appointment for the cat to go to the vet. Then it says, give the cat a bath. And then it says something else about the cat. And then it's call mom. My mom's like, really? The cat got above me on the list? She didn't really like that, but it was just truly, it was my brain dump, right? So, but here's my question for you. When you make that long, long, long list, and I know you have one, it's either on your notebook, in your paper, it's in your computer, or it's in your head. I want you to think about that list. And then I want you to think about your assistant. If you don't have an assistant, your imaginary assistant, I want you to imagine that you've just been given a full-time employee. And I want you to take a look at your lists and imagine giving that to your employee and expecting her to have all of those things done in one day. Is it even realistic? Is it even possible? And when I made that realization once, it actually happened to me when I was coaching somebody else and I gave her that advice and I realized that advice, I really needed to take it myself, right? That's when I stopped having ridiculous expectations. And even now today, I try to put like less than 5 things to do on my to-do list every day because I see clients, 3 or 4 clients a day. When I'm working with my clients, I'm fully engaged in them. And I have found through this time of quarantine, right? What did I do at the beginning of quarantine? I'm like, oh, more time, more stuff. Jam the calendar, jam the calendar, jam the calendar. And I found that I was really stressing myself out. And now I am really moving to only having one thing to do on the day that I'm working with clients, one thing in the morning and one in the afternoon. Now, do I have many more things to do? Yes, but they don't have to be done today. So I put them off on days in the future. And I have to tell you, when I work like that, I get so much more done. And my business is thriving. So focus on accomplishments and focus on realistic expectations, okay? And here's my advice for you. When you get really good at this, you might have this very unfamiliar feeling of peace, pride, and achievement. And the side effects of that overall contentment in life, and way better sleep. Okay, strategy number 8, and this is one that many people, men and women, struggle with, and that is negative thinking. That is the immediate bad thought, the immediate worst possible scenario. How about this? How many times have you had something happen, a situation has come up at work, at home, or in the community, and you immediately assume that it has something to do with you, it's your fault or your responsibility? Isn't that interesting? I had this happen not too recently, but I would say within the past 2 years. I had one of my clients unsubscribe from my email lists. And you know what's so interesting? This is a person that I was working with once a week as a coach. And I sent out an email newsletter and I get an instant unsubscribe. And I'm like, oh, I pushed her too far that last session. I gave her too big of goals. I've made her mad. Maybe she doesn't agree with me politically. I immediately assumed that it was my fault. And then I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. She loves and adores you, right? So let's become curious. When you have these negative thoughts, become curious. So I didn't do anything that moment, but the next time we talked to her, I said, her name is Lori. And I said, hey, Lori, I noticed you unsubscribed from my email newsletter. She said, what? How did I do that? Oh, I was looking at emails on my phone. I have to stop doing that. I hit the wrong button. Please put me back on, right? If I were in my 20s, I might have spent days trying to figure out what I had done to offend Lori. And it turns out I did nothing to offend Lori. It was just something weird that happened with technology, right? So when you catch yourself going down that lane of negative thinking, use the curiosity tool. Be curious and ask yourself, are these thoughts true? Are these thoughts accurate? Are they relevant to anybody else in the same situation? Would I talk to or think anything like this in any situation? You know, I'm a life and business coach, but very occasionally, not actually very occasionally, but pretty often, because I work with women in business and our personal lives have so much impact on our business. A lot of times we'll be talking about relationships and relationship issues. And there's a lot of times that one partner in the relationship does something, and the woman is usually who I'm working with, has a thought about it that assumes the absolute worst. And sometimes I will say to her, well, you know, is that actually true? Because here's what I see in your relationship. She's totally thinking in fear and assuming the worst of everything. So let's ask, is this true what you're thinking? Is it true that your husband or your boyfriend or your significant other thinks this, does this, feels this way? Is that accurate? I don't think that's accurate. If I were in that situation, is that what you would think if this was happening? Sometimes we take ourselves down these terrible, terrible roads of negative thinking, and we waste a lot of time there. Okay, amen. Anybody ever done that before? So pause for a second and ask yourself, what's really true? What's really true about this situation? What's really true about this promotion that I'm up for? What's really true about what my neighbor gave me a dirty look when I was taking the trash out this morning, right? Maybe her husband had just yelled at her, or maybe her kid had just thrown up on her foot, right? It probably doesn't have anything to do with you. So I don't know that I can actually, I might change this. It says overcome negative thinking. I'm going to maybe change this to say, be aware of negative thinking. Be aware of it, because I think that I've learned in reading that scientifically our brains think negative first. It's a way of protecting us and keeping us safe. So be aware of negative thinking and how much damage that can do. So always ask, is it true? Is it accurate? Is it fair? Would I say or think this to any other person? All right, so here are some common things that I see women saying. I failed. I'm so embarrassed. You know, I think it's so interesting when a woman says to me, my husband, my boyfriend, my boss lied to me. I'm so embarrassed. I always think that's interesting. I feel so foolish because he did that. I always think that's very interesting. Does that make sense to you? Might make sense to you if you're saying it about yourself, but really think about that. Somebody else did something to you and you're embarrassed. And we see this in victims of violent crime all the time. They feel embarrassed, they feel foolish. It's a very interesting thing, and it's not appropriate and not true. Okay, so let's think about, I feel foolish. I'm not sure I'm qualified. I'm not sure I'm good enough for that. So instead of saying these words, instead of saying I failed, how about I attempted? I'm so embarrassed. How about I'm so disappointed? I feel really foolish. How about I took a risk? When you're thinking I'm not competent or I'm not qualified to apply for that position or to ask for a raise, how about saying instead, I'm a competent negotiator. I'm a competent business owner. I'm a competent mother. I'm a competent whatever, right? I didn't do enough. Well, sometimes that happens, right? How about I'm going to do better next time? These are really simple strategies to change those negative thinking habits, okay? So strategy number 9, I have been practicing gratitude. Actually, friends, I think I was born practicing gratitude. I'm blessed to be a very optimistic person. I'm blessed to just always see the best in every situation, to the point of where that can be very annoying to people that I live and work with, but that's the way I'm wired. I easily practice gratitude. And during this pandemic, I have noticed how many people, I wanted to just rip my computer out. When I would see these very privileged women go onto social media and say, I am so tired of being stuck in my house. When I think about what they have, right? Oh, this is so hard for me. I don't think that way. I naturally practice gratitude, but I have never needed it more in my life than the past couple of months with the different disappointments and, of course, the things that we have been worried about. And so practicing gratitude is so important. And I know that when times are hard, it's really difficult to practice being grateful, especially if you're not naturally wired that way. Oops, I thought I had a little tip there for you. Let me go back there. I thought I had a little tip there. Oh, well, it's not coming up. I'll have to remember what it is and I'll share it with you later in an email. But thinking about just one good thing that happened. And I'll tell you when I really had to struggle with this was when my boys were in middle school. When my youngest was in middle school, oh boy, did he have a rough time in middle school. He hated going to school. And as a single mom, I just didn't really have the opportunity to be able to give him any kind of an out there. He had to go. And every single day I would say to him, just tell me one good thing that happened today. Just tell me one good thing. And I watched how every day he would shift a little. And soon I started saying to him, can you tell me 2 good things that happened today? Now, sometimes he had to think a long time, but he did come up with 2 things. And I will never forget, you guys, the day that he came home from school and he walked in the door and the first thing he said is, guess what good happened today? And I knew we had turned the corner. This can really reprogram your brain. It can help you deal with anxiety, with anger, with frustration, with resentment. Gratitude is a gift. Okay, my last strategy for you in being resilient, particularly for those of you who get very frustrated, either with the humans in your family or the human beings that you work with, right? Especially if you have to see this every time you walk into your office, right? That's a different webinar, but I will tell you, if this is what you're working into every day at work, you have to come to one of my other workshops about delegating and leading well. But that's not tonight, but this is not what you should be getting. This means you're not letting people do their stuff. They're coming to you to complain about everything. So look, it doesn't matter what your title is. It doesn't matter if you're an executive, if you're a VP, if you're an entry level, if you're a stay-at-home mom, you are a leader. You're a leader at work, you're a leader at home, and you are a leader in your community. People are paying attention to how you handle things and how you react to things. And when you handle things very well, you're modeling for other people how to also handle things well. Right? So here's what I learned. This is my 10th book. In 2014, I wrote a book called Smart Leadership. And that's the first book that I really traveled on. And that's the book where I was meeting people in conference rooms that really had business issues, right? It wasn't the women entrepreneurs that I had worked with before. And it was fascinating to me because I would be in the state of New York 1 month, and I'd be in Ohio, and then I was in Colorado, and I was in Texas, and I realized that people are pretty much the same everywhere. And here's what I really ended that book tour with. This I wrote on the airplane when I was flying home from Denver back to Pittsburgh. And I was thinking about how people are very different in Colorado, but they're also very the same. And every place that I visited and every business owner, manager, leader that sat with me and told me their problems, some of which you will read about Frank in this book. It's a really good problem. Some of you have already written to me about Frank. But here's what I learned in all of these boardrooms and all of these conferences and all of the problems that I was hearing. Can you help us solve this? Can you help us deal with this? And here's what I realized. Number one, every human being, every individual has potential. Everybody has potential. And most of the people that you live and work with, and those of you who serve in the community, doing very important work in your community, most of us are doing the best we can. There's sometimes somebody who really does want to come in and give you a hard time, but for the most part, people are doing the best that they can. Most people don't come into work intent on ruining your day or disrupting things. Most people are doing the best they can. And most importantly, people, and this goes from very young children to the oldest adult that you know, people will live up or down to the expectations that you set for them. Always set your standards high. Always expect the best. And guess what? This applies to you as well. You will live up to or down to the expectations that you set for yourself. And you know what you can accomplish. All right, here's a little extra tip for you to be resilient. I recommend, if you want to be resilient, especially during the toughest times of your life, you have to laugh. You were meant and born with the tool of humor and laughter, and it helps your immune system if you laugh every day. So if you're on Pinterest, those of you who are still on Pinterest, I have a board on Pinterest that says happy thoughts and little laughs. And I was looking at it today, and I have a bunch of them, but this is one of my favorite ones. And I don't know why this one particularly tickles me the way it does, but I wanted to find something short to, oops, wait a minute, it didn't play, hold on. Let me go back. I might have to make it big screen. There we go. So there's not going to be any sound on this, but this is a little, just sweet little girl who is just discovering ice. Look at that. She's got to check it out and see what it's like. Boom. I do not know why, but I really like that video, and it just gives me a giggle. So, I have the Leadership Academy for Women. And one of the things that we teach in Leadership Academy is the negotiation skills. And sometimes we are negotiating very difficult things. And the very last thing I say in my negotiation class is when your negotiation conversation is over, you must laugh. And it's so amazing to me how I will see women who have planned these amazing, important things for themselves. And they book themselves to just with absolutely no gaps in their calendar. And one is a huge, huge negotiation. I don't want you to go into a meeting after a negotiation. I want you to take a couple of hours off because you deserve it. And I want you to laugh, right? How about this? Back before COVID, when we had funerals in person, I would see women say, I have to go to a funeral. I'll be right back. I won't be gone more than an hour. No. Go to the funeral, be at the funeral, mourn with your friends and family. You don't have to work today. Most of us are not doing brain surgery, so we don't have to be here all day long, producing all the time, okay? So when you've had some stress, when you've had some challenges, and you've been feeling down, take a minute to laugh. There was a time in our lives, you've heard me talk, I don't think I've talked about him tonight, but Paul is my significant other. We had a time I'm going to say it's about 5 years ago, where everything seemed to just go wrong at one time. His mom was sick. My dad was sick. My mom got sick. His son broke up with his girlfriend. My son broke up with his girlfriend. It was kind of like all around us. We were fine. Paul and I were fine, but we were sort of juggling things all the time. And we never knew when that phone rang, who was going to be crying or needing a ride or needing picked up or moving back in with us. We didn't know what was going on. And I can remember one Friday night, he came home and we were just exhausted just from the contents of the week. And I had seen, I had taken my mom to the doctor's office that day, and in the waiting room was the Ellen show. And I don't watch TV during the day because, you know, I'm working all the time. And Ellen had these funny texts on. And I found myself in the waiting room when my mom was getting blood work, and I was just giggling and giggling at these hilarious texts. So I wanted to show it to Paul. So it was a Friday night, right after dinner, I pull up YouTube and I pull up Ellen, these funny texts. Meanwhile, an hour and a half later, we are laughing so hard, tears coming down our eyes, just watching funny videos on YouTube. Seriously, it was like the best Friday night we had had that whole entire summer. So please remember to laugh, okay? And my last tip for you is, as I said before, it doesn't matter what your title is. At home, at work, in the community, you are an influencer, most especially during tough times. Be a strong and resilient woman. Don't be a perfect woman. Don't be perfect. You can make mistakes, right? But do the best you can, because then you're teaching other people to do the same, all right? So now, for those of you who are still here, I would love for you to show your video so that we can take a group photo. Liz is gonna take a group photo for us. In the meantime, while you guys are popping up, hi Alexis. I would like to tell you that my next webcast is going to be August 18th. And I'm going to be teaching 5 steps to manifest the life and business you've been longing for. So you can find that on my website, but I will also, when I send out the recording for tonight, I will put the link to that webcast in there. So if you've enjoyed tonight, you want to come to my next one in August, you know, these are the same things that I teach when I'm on the road. And I thought, I'm just not going to stop teaching. I'll just do it by webinar. We'll see what we can do, right? So if you've enjoyed this inspiration tonight and we're not already connected, if you're on Facebook, I have a group on Facebook called Monday Morning Mastermind with Beth Caldwell. That's totally free. And a lot of times I put videos in there and I have my thoughts. Amanda, you're in that group. So she's often liking the things that I post in there. Sometimes they're a little direct. They're always very refreshing. And let's see what else I have in here for you. And these are my websites. So Leadership Academy for Women and Success Coaching for Women on coachbethcaldwell.com. Either one of those, you can sign up for my email newsletters. And if you need a speaker for your company or organization, just reply to the email that I send out after this video, all right? So let me stop sharing here. So Liz, let's stop the recording. I'll do that. I'm telling you to do it, but I'm going to stop the recording. All right, I'm stopping the recording now. So the